today we're going to talk about Armageddon, right? We're going to talk about Doomsday. We're going to talk about the end of the world, because how can we talk about Doomsday cults and not talk about the end of the world? That doesn't make sense, people. Come on. Now, if you've been watching this series thus far, and maybe you know me from other videos, you know that I have never been a Jehovah's Witness, but I have been a part of a Doomsday cult that is very similar to Jehovah's Witnesses. The cult I was a part of is like if you took Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and the Unification Church of Korea, and they all had a baby somehow, and it was raised on kimchi. That's basically the group I came from. But anyway, we're going to talk about how, regardless of what control group, doomsday sect you come from, they all have the same tactics, they all have the same packaging, they all have the same manipulation and coercion and exploitation. It's just maybe they have different wrapping paper. That's it. So first, for you Jehovah's Witness viewers, let me explain how I was taught about Armageddon in my cult. So they would show you Revelation chapter 7, which talks about the angel from the east putting the seal of God on the 144,000, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, right? The elect, God's chosen people, etc. Those who are going to be with God and be in heaven with God, etc. And I was taught that the world was going to end before that. And how I was taught it was going to end is through nuclear war and World War III. So basically, I was just shown a bunch of imagery of World War III and nuclear weapons, people dying, and just horrific imagery that keeps you up at night. And so you're constantly thinking about in these organizations, doomsday, doomsday, Armageddon, Armageddon. And that fear that is built up inside of you allows you to be under their control because they are creating a problem, but they're also giving you a solution to that problem. Oh, just follow the governing body. Just follow Jehovah's true church on the earth. You don't have to worry about it. Same with WMSCOG. Oh, just follow Mother, this Korean 80-year-old grandma. Just follow her. And then you'll be okay. You'll be protected from Armageddon. But do you see the problem? They're the ones that are creating the problem, but it just so happens that they're also creating a solution. Maybe there's something to that. But anyway, regardless of what wrapping paper, Armageddon, end of the world, is heavily taught, heavily reminded of in these organizations. And your survival in this scenario, this horrific scenario that's going to come upon all people, is explicitly tied to your obedience. And what obedience, you might ask? Well, whatever the organization deems as obedience. Questioning the narrative, questioning the leader or the organization basically feels like you're unaliving yourself. Because if you're questioning the narrative, you're questioning God's organization, you're questioning the truth, then how on earth can you be saved during Armageddon, during this end of the world scenario? So let me explain why cults use these kind of fear tactics and fear mongering, because fear overrides logic, right? You can see that in any kind of real survivor scenario, right? It's fight or flight response. Fear is very useful in shutting down critical thinking, and it keeps people extremely compliant because they think their survival depends on obedience. So even though I was in a different cult, a different doomsday cult, I still had that same feeling, that same 24/7 anxiety, thinking that the world was going to end, and am I good enough? Did I follow the organization good enough? Did I follow the leader good enough? Am I worthy of the leader saving me in this case or leading me to salvation? And when you have a constant state of anxiety, obedience is that much easier, and the organization's control over you is that much stronger. Which, if you've watched my other two videos about this, when we talked about why it's hard to leave the Jehovah's Witnesses and why it's hard to leave, and I'm not going to lie, leaving these organizations is a very painful, terrifying, agonizing, and hopeless experience. And it's almost impossible to describe it to somebody if they've never gone through it themselves. It really is. I mean, you feel guilt, you feel shame, you feel extreme anxiety, fear, hopelessness, depression. You even have nightmares where you can't sleep because you think that the end of the world happened, and what if they're right? What if the organization was right? What if the governing body was right? And you just listen to Satan. You just listen to your sinful nature. And that leads to a constant feeling of you're damned. You're a dead man walking. Or woman, if you're watching and you're a woman, obviously. But I want you to realize one thing. These things that you're experiencing, it's not because the group was right. It's because you were going through trauma. You were abused. You were used. You were coerced. You were exploited. You were hurt. You were broken for so long. This is your body's natural reaction to the trauma that you've undergone for such a long time. It has nothing to do with them being right. They're completely wrong. And in my opinion, they're evil. They're extremely evil, especially the ones that know what they're doing and they keep doing it just for power, control, and money. But the reason why you're going through this is because you're in the process of letting it all out. You're in the process of healing, finding yourself, finding your identity, finding what you like, what you don't like, who you are, what your goals are, what your new dreams are, what your new hopes are. And sometimes that process is fearful. It's scary. You don't know what's going to happen. It's vague. It's up in the air, it seems like. But one thing I want you to remember is that, yes, fear feels like truth when you've lived in it for so long and that's how you guided your life. But fear isn't prophecy. Fear isn't truth. Fear is conditioning. It's programming. And I hope that those who are watching that maybe they're not familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses or even WMSCOG for that matter, I hope you kind of got a taste of what it's like to be in a doomsday cult and all that anxiety and fear, constantly thinking that the end of the world is nigh and having to live like that and structure a life around that. I hope you got a little taste of it, but again, it's really hard to explain if you haven't actually gone through it and lived it. It's extremely hard to explain. So I hope I did a decent job. Let me know in the comments below if I did. On your screen, you're going to see a playlist of WMSCOG survivor stories. So if you're a Jehovah's Witness or another doomsday cult survivor and you want someone to relate to, even though it's not your organization, feel free to check out that playlist on the screen. And also check out the recommended video because YouTube thinks you're going to like this one, and I do too. So check it out.